The sun was setting on planet Terra 9, a quiet colony far away from Earth. The sky turned orange and red as Jack sat on his porch, sipping warm coffee. He was a retired soldier, now living a peaceful life with his dog, Rex. Jack had seen war, lost friends, and done things he never wanted to remember. But here, on Terra 9, everything was calm. No soldiers, no noise, just the sound of wind and Rex's paws on the dry ground. Rex was not an ordinary dog. He was trained for military missions. Loyal, sharp, and brave, Jack had raised him since he was a pup, and they had been through many battles together. Now, Rex was his only family, and they trusted each other more than anything. That evening, something changed. Rex stood up suddenly. Ears high, nose sniffing the air, he let out a deep growl. Then barked once, sharp and alert. Jack frowned and placed his cup down. "What is it, boy?" he asked, reaching for his scanner and a flashlight. Rex took off toward the forest line, running fast. Jack followed quickly, heart pounding. Rex never reacted like this unless something serious was nearby. They ran past trees and rocks, through dry leaves and shadows. Then Rex stopped and barked loudly, tail stiff, eyes locked on something in the bushes. Jack stepped closer and pushed the leaves aside. There, lying in the dirt, was a body, not human, but not fully alien either. It was tall, thin, with pale green skin and glowing veins. The creature was bleeding from the chest, and its left arm looked broken. It held something in its hand, a strange metal cube, covered in symbols Jack couldn't read. The creature opened one eye, stared at Jack, then passed out. Jack looked at Rex, who wasn't growling anymore. Instead, Rex sat quietly, watching the being with calm eyes. Something about the scene made Jack feel uneasy, but curious. He scanned the creature, and the results shocked him. It showed traces of human DNA, mixed with unknown alien genes. "That's impossible," Jack whispered. "How can it be part human?" He looked at the cube in its hand, which was starting to glow faintly. The moment Jack touched it, the cube blinked with blue light and made a soft humming sound. Jack felt a strange pulse run through his fingers, like the cube recognized him. Rex let out a short bark and looked up at Jack as if saying, "We need to help him." Jack sighed and picked up the creature carefully. It was heavier than it looked, and the metal cube remained warm in his pocket. They returned to Jack's shelter, moving quickly through the dark. Once inside, Jack placed the alien on a clean table and began first aid. He had treated wounds before, but never on someone like this. Rex sat nearby, watching closely, growling softly whenever the cube beeped. Jack cleaned the blood, wrapped the chest, and stabilized the arm. The alien still didn't wake up, but it was breathing. Slow and steady, Jack placed the cube in a sealed box, not wanting to take chances. But even inside, the cube gave off a gentle blue glow. Rex approached the box, sniffed it, then whined softly. He pawed at it once, then backed away, tail low. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Jack asked, sitting down beside Rex. Rex rested his head on Jack's knee, as if saying, "This is not just another creature." Outside, the wind picked up, and the night grew darker. Something about this moment felt big, like the start of something much larger. Jack couldn't explain it, but deep inside he knew. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of a new war. Or maybe the end of an old one. As Jack turned off the lights to rest, the cube in the box flashed once, then again. Then it whispered something in a robotic voice. One word: Genesis. Jack sat up straight, heart racing. He had heard that word before, long ago, in a secret mission that was erased from the records. Genesis, Rex growled, eyes glowing slightly in the cube's light. The past Jack tried to forget was about to return. And this time, it brought answers he might not want to hear. Asterisk. The night was cold, but Jack couldn't sleep. He sat beside the metal box, eyes locked on the glowing cube, inside, outside. The wind howled across the dry hills of Terra 9. Inside, the shelter was quiet. Too quiet. Even Rex, his loyal dog, didn't sleep. He just stared at the alien on the table and then at the cube. Again and again, Jack's fingers hovered above the box. The word Genesis echoed in his mind. He hadn't heard that name in over 20 years. Back then, he was part of a mission so secret. They were told it never happened. The cube pulsed once. A faint light moved across its surface, revealing new symbols. Not just alien letters, but part of it looked like Earth's old military codes. Jack took a deep breath and opened the box. The moment he touched the cube, it came to life. A soft click, then a whirring sound. Blue light spilled out and formed a hologram. Floating in the air, Jack stepped back, stunned. Rex growled softly, but didn't move. The hologram showed a woman in a black military uniform. Her voice was cold, calm, and controlled. Genesis Protocol. Level 9 clearance, she said. Subject, Hybrid Project. Codename, Echo 7. Jack's eyes widened. Echo 7. The same number tattooed on the alien's wrist. The woman continued. In the year 2217, Earth Defense Command approved an experiment combining human DNA with alien biomaterial. Goal, create perfect soldiers for deep space warfare. Jack remembered now. He had delivered cargo to a hidden base during that time. Classified materials, unknown even to the rest of the army. Now he knew what was inside those boxes. The woman in the hologram paused. We lost contact with subject. Echo 7 during extraction mission 5. Presumed dead. Jack looked at the alien on his table. Alive. Wounded and forgotten. Memory erasure was authorized for all personnel. The voice added. Jack's hands trembled. They had erased his memories, but now pieces were coming back. The cube blinked again. This time, it showed a map. A star system far beyond Terra 9. In the center was a red signal. Flashing slowly, then came a countdown. Signal sent. Retrieval in 72 hours. Rex barked sharply, as if warning Jack. The cube had just called someone, but who? Jack shut the box and locked it tight. His heart raced. He checked the alien again. Its breathing was stronger now, and the bleeding had stopped. It twitched slightly and opened its eyes. This time, it didn't faint. It stared at Jack, then looked at Rex. Its voice was rough and dry, but clear enough. You remember me? Jack froze. Rex stepped forward slowly, sniffed the air, then wagged his tail. Once, twice, the alien reached out with weak fingers and touched Rex's fur. Dog. Loyal, always, it said. Before closing its eyes again, Jack sat down stunned. He didn't understand all of it yet. But one thing was clear. Rex knew this creature, and maybe Jack did too, somewhere deep inside. He walked to the back of the shelter and opened an old locker. Inside were dusty metal boxes marked, retired, not to be opened. He broke the seal and opened one. Inside were files, pictures, and something that chilled him to the bone. A photo of Rex, standing beside a younger version of the alien, both wearing military tags. Jack couldn't breathe. His dog had served with this hybrid before, and that meant the Genesis program wasn't just about war. It was about bonding they hadn't created. Weapons, they had created partners. Suddenly, the power flickered. A strange noise echoed through the sky, like distant thunder. Jack stepped outside and looked up. A faint red light moved in the stars above. A ship, or maybe something worse, had received the cube's signal. Inside, the alien whispered something again, eyes half open. They will come. Not to rescue, but to erase. Rex barked loud and long. Standing between the alien and the door, Jack looked at both of them, heart full of questions and fear. This wasn't just a lost soldier. This was unfinished history. And the clock was now ticking. He walked over, placed a hand on Rex's back, and looked at the alien. You're not dying this time, Jack said. Not on my watch. The cube pulsed once more. 3 lights blinked in sequence. The countdown had begun, whatever was coming. They had less than 3 days to prepare. It began with a dream, or maybe a memory. The hybrid lay still on the table, but inside his mind, old images played like fire. He saw dark halls, metal walls, human faces behind glass. He saw pain, testing, commands spoken in a cold voice. Then, one moment of peace, a child's laugh, a dog's bark, and then silence. Outside the dream, Jack sat at his desk, eyes fixed on the metal cube. He hadn't opened it since the last message. The countdown still blinked slowly. 72 hours had become 60. Time was moving, and the past was waking up. Rex sat beside the table, watching the hybrid sleep. His eyes were different now, not just alert, but connected, as if part of him remembered something Jack couldn't yet see. Jack tapped the side of the cube, unsure what he wanted from it. Then, it blinked again and opened by itself. No button, no switch, just response to thought. A new hologram appeared, but this time, it wasn't Earth military. It was the hybrid, younger, speaking directly to camera. Message to any who find me, the recording said. My name is Echo 7, born of human blood and alien design. I was not made to kill, he continued, voice softer now. I was made to connect. Jack leaned in, heart racing. The message wasn't military. It was personal, recorded in secret, hidden inside the cube. The hologram showed Echo 7 and a small group of hybrid children, playing with dogs, laughing, learning. This was the real Genesis, Echo 7 said. They told the soldiers we were weapons, but we were made to feel, to learn empathy through animal bonds, to become more human than human itself. Rex barked once, a soft, almost sad sound. He walked to the screen and touched it with his nose. The hologram changed, and this time showed Rex, young, sitting beside Echo 7, both smiling. Jack's knees felt weak. He had trained Rex from a pup, or so he believed, but now he saw the truth. Rex had belonged to Genesis long before Jack ever met him. Another voice entered the hologram. A woman's voice, full of fear. They're going to shut it down, she said. They don't want the hybrids to feel. They want them to forget what it means to be alive. The screen went black and the cube sealed itself again. Jack sat in silence, mind spinning. The Genesis protocol wasn't just a military project. It was a cover-up. They had built living beings with emotion, then tried to erase them. And Echo 7, the wounded hybrid now lying in Jack's shelter, had escaped with proof. Jack turned to look at him, still breathing slowly, still healing. He knew what would happen next. The ones who created Echo 7 would now want to destroy him. Not because he was dangerous, but because he remembered too much. Suddenly, Echo 7 opened his eyes. This time he sat up, weak but awake. His voice was low but clear. You saw it, he said. Jack nodded. Why now? Jack asked. Why send that message and lead them back to us? Echo 7 looked at Rex, then at Jack. Because if I die without telling the truth, they win. Genesis wasn't failure, he said. It was beauty they feared. Outside, a small beep echoed from Jack's radar system. He checked the screen. An object entering Terra 9's orbit. Too small for a ship, too fast for a rock. Probe, he muttered. They're tracking the signal. Echo 7 stood, shaky but stronger now. I need to finish what we started, he said. I can stop them, but not alone. Jack looked at Rex, then back at the hybrid. For the first time, all three stood together. Man, dog, and the forgotten soldier of Genesis. Not enemies, not weapons, but something else. Something powerful. Echo 7 reached into the box and touched the cube. It glowed again, but this time, it responded differently. Instead of a message, it revealed a map, lines, codes, deep system tunnels under Terra 9, a hidden base, the original Genesis lab, buried beneath the colony. That's where it began, Echo 7 whispered. That's where it ends. Rex barked sharply, ready. Jack grabbed his gear, heart beating fast. He didn't know what waited in those tunnels, but he knew one thing. They wouldn't run. They would uncover everything. As they stepped out into the dark, the cube's final light faded. It had done its job now. The truth would have to walk on its own legs, and time was running out. The wind changed that night. It didn't blow gently like before. It whistled through the trees with a sharp, high-pitched sound like a warning. Even the birds in the hills went silent. Rex stood at the door of the shelter, unmoving. His ears were stiff, tail straight, nose up. Jack stepped outside with his rifle in hand, eyes scanning the sky. There were no stars, only thick clouds glowing faint red from above. "They're here," Echo 7 whispered behind him. His voice was calmer than expected, but his eyes were focused. Jack followed his gaze toward the ridge beyond the forest. A small flicker of light appeared, then another and another. 3 scout ships, fast and silent, entered the planet's airspace. Rex let out a low growl. Jack touched his shoulder to steady him. "Not yet, boy," he said. "They haven't landed." But they would. Jack knew it. Eco 7 knew it. And so did Rex. Inside the shelter, the cube was now cold. Its purpose was complete, and now it was just a piece of dead metal. But the truth it had unlocked was alive and dangerous. Echo 7 pulled back his sleeve, revealing a mark on his arm, the Genesis seal, burned into his skin long ago. "They will search for this," he said. "It's not just an ID. It's a key to activate the failsafe." Jack frowned. "What failsafe?" Echo 7 looked him in the eye. "If they find me, I become the weapon they fear. My body holds the last code to erase the Genesis experiment permanently. They'd rather burn the planet than let me live." Jack stepped back, the weight of those words sinking in. "If they take you," he said slowly, "this colony becomes ground zero." "Yes," Echo 7 replied, "but I won't let them." The lights flickered once, then went out. Total darkness swallowed the shelter. A power jam. The enemy was close. Jack grabbed backup lights, strapped on armor from his old crate. He hadn't worn it in years, but his hands remembered what to do. Rex stood beside him, tail wagging lightly, as if ready to return to war. They moved into the forest, silent and fast. Echo 7 led the way using a path only he knew, toward the hidden Genesis lab beneath the colony. They had to reach it before the enemy did. That's where the answers waited. That's where the fight would begin. As they ran, Rex suddenly stopped and barked sharply. A sound came from above, a deep, rumbling hum. Jack looked up, heart racing. A large ship hovered above the trees. No sound, no flame, just pure motion. It wasn't human technology. Too smooth, too silent, too precise. 3 figures dropped from its belly, tall, armored, faceless. They moved like shadows, scanning the forest, searching. Rex growled and crouched low, ready to strike. Echo 7 grabbed Jack's arm. "No," he said, "we must not fight here." They changed direction, diving deeper into the trees. Jack placed a small bomb on a tree trunk, a trap, just in case. They reached a small hill covered in moss, where Echo 7 touched a hidden panel. The ground beneath them opened with a soft hiss, revealing a dark tunnel inside. The air was cold and thick with dust. Metal walls lined the passage, old, rusted, but still strong. This was the original Genesis lab, long abandoned, buried, forgotten, but not destroyed. Not yet. As they moved through the corridors, lights flickered to life one by one. Echo 7 reached a chamber and stopped. "This is where I was made," he said quietly. "This is where I was taught to feel." Jack looked around. There were old training rooms, memory pods, even tiny sleeping areas. One had a blanket with dog prints on it. It wasn't a lab. It was a home, once. A home they never told the world about. Before Jack could speak, the ceiling shook, dust fell like snow, and a siren echoed through the tunnel. "They found the entrance," Jack said. "We don't have much time." Echo 7 walked to a central console, placed his hand on it. It scanned the Genesis mark on his arm. A screen opened with a red button, pulsing slowly. "Failsafe armed," the screen said. Jack stepped closer. "If you press that, this entire place goes up." Echo 7 nodded. "But not until I give the signal. They won't get what they came for." Suddenly, Rex barked 3 times in a row. Fast, urgent. The enemy had entered the tunnels. Footsteps echoed in the distance. Getting closer, Jack loaded his weapon. Echo 7 pulled a small blade from his side. Rex stood in front of them, eyes locked on. The hallway, 3 shadows moved closer, then stopped. A voice spoke, not human, not warm. "Return the asset," it said, "or die with it." Jack raised his gun. "We don't return family," he said. And then the battle began. The first shot never made a sound. It passed through the air like a whisper, burning a line into the wall just inches from Jack's head. He ducked behind cover, heart racing, pulse pounding in his ears. Rex barked and leapt over a crate, teeth bared, as 3 armored shadows rushed down the corridor. Echo 7 moved like a blur, blade in hand, his body glowing faintly from inside. He wasn't just a hybrid, he was awakening. Jack fired 2 rounds, clean, fast, focused. The first enemy dropped with a flash of green blood. The second lunged forward, claws out. But Rex hit him mid-air, sending both crashing into the wall. Sparks flew, bones cracked, and silence followed. Jack turned to Echo 7, who stood still, his chest rising and falling with effort. But it wasn't exhaustion. It was something else, something burning inside. "They sent scouts only," Echo 7 said quietly. "The real squad is coming now." Jack looked at him, confused. "How do you know that?" Echo 7 touched the glowing mark on his arm. "Because they can feel me," he said. "They made me a living tracker. Where I go, they follow." Jack's mind went blank for a moment. So all this time, Echo 7 hadn't just been running. He'd been pulling them in. "You could have told me," Jack said, coldly. "You brought them right to the colony." Echo 7 lowered his eyes. "I didn't mean to. But I knew I couldn't outrun them. Forever. If I kept running, someone else would suffer." He looked at Rex, who sat quietly now, tail still, watching both of them. "I had to come home." Jack didn't speak for a while. He looked at the walls of the lab, all rusted. Metal and broken lights. Was this really home? Or just the ghost of a failed dream? A deep rumble came from above, shaking the ground. More ships had landed. The main force was here. Echo 7 walked to the failsafe console, hand hovering above the button. "If I press this, the lab will be destroyed," he said, "and me with it." Jack's jaw clenched. "You're not doing that." Echo 7 turned to him, calm but firm. "If they take me alive, they'll unlock the Genesis core. They'll learn everything, restart the program, build worse versions of me." Jack stepped forward, grabbed his arm. "We fight," he said. "We fight like soldiers, not ghosts." Echo 7 shook his head. "I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm a message." Rex walked between them and barked twice, sharp and loud. Both men turned, surprised. Rex then did something unexpected. He sat in front of the console and placed his paw gently on the failsafe panel. Jack's chest tightened. "No," he whispered, stepping back. Rex looked up at him with eyes full of something more than instinct. It was memory, it was choice. Echo 7 kneeled beside him, touching his forehead gently. "You remember the other pups," he said softly. "You remember what they did." Rex barked again. But this time it sounded like a goodbye. Jack suddenly realized what was happening. Rex wasn't just guarding the failsafe. He was offering to trigger it, if needed. If everything else failed, Rex would be the last shield. Jack dropped to his knees, holding Rex's face in his hands. "Nobody," he whispered, voice shaking. "You don't have to be the one." But Rex had already chosen. He wagged his tail once gently and nuzzled Jack's chest. A quiet promise passed between them, not in words, but in the unbreakable bond of trust. Outside, footsteps echoed again, louder, closer. The enemy was in the tunnels, almost at the door. Jack looked at Echo 7, then at Rex, then back at the failsafe. One choice could destroy everything. The other could let monsters rise again. Then came a voice, crackling through the lab's old speaker system. It was cold, metallic, and full of command. "Return the prototype," it said, "or we destroy the entire colony." Jack took a deep breath, stood up. and aimed his rifle at the door. Echo 7 stood beside him, hands glowing now with quiet power, and Rex, brave, loyal Rex, sat behind them like a silent guardian. No more running, no more fear. They had made their choice, and whatever happened next, they would face it together. Asterisk. It began with a sound no one could describe. Not thunder, not wind, not machine, but something deep, like space itself had opened its mouth and taken a breath. The ground shook, lights blinked, and dust fell from the ceiling of the old Genesis lab. Then came the flash, white, wide, and blinding. A section of the tunnel exploded, sending metal and fire in every direction. Jack hit the floor, rolling. Behind cover, Echo 7 shielded himself with a flash of light from his hands. Rex darted across the room, avoiding debris with sharp, trained movement. The war had begun. Figures entered through the smoke, tall, armored, glowing with red lines across their suits. Not soldiers, not human, but something worse, collectors. Don't let them touch you, Echo 7 warned. They drain memory. Jack didn't. Wait. He opened fire, bullets piercing one of them through the chest, but the thing didn't fall. It absorbed the shot, paused, then kept walking. Rex growled and charged, teeth snapping at the nearest collector's leg. The creature swung a blade. Rex ducked, leapt, and drove his body into its chest. The collector crashed into the wall, sparks flying. Echo 7 turned, eyes glowing with blue light. He raised his arm, and a wave of pure energy pulsed from his palm. The closest enemies were thrown back, slamming into the steel walls. But more were coming. Dozens now, maybe more, crawling through the tunnels like a swarm, silent and cold. We're not going to hold them. Jack shouted, reloading his weapon. Echo 7 stepped beside him, breathing hard. If they breach the core, it's over. Jack pointed toward the far wall. Is there another way out? Echo 7 nodded. There's a path through the lower labs, but it leads past something worse. Jack didn't ask what. They didn't have time. Suddenly, one of the collectors grabbed Echo 7 by the neck. The hybrid gasped as red energy flowed from his body into the creature. It was stealing his memory and his strength. Rex barked and flew through the air, slamming into the collector's face. It shrieked and let go, dropping Echo 7 to the ground. Rex stood between them, tail stiff, body glowing. Jack stared, frozen. Rex's fur shimmered with the same blue light that flowed through Echo 7. The same power, the same code. Echo 7 looked up, coughing. He's activating. What do you mean? Jack asked, eyes wide. He wasn't just trained to protect, Echo 7 whispered. He was designed to bond. Part of the Genesis link. Part of me. Rex let out a deep, loud bark and energy burst from his chest like a shield. The collectors froze, shaken by the force. In that moment, Jack saw it. Rex wasn't just a dog. He was the bridge. A flash hit the lab's main power core, and alarms began to scream. A voice echoed through the speaker system. Core breach in 3 minutes. Echo 7 stood up. Stronger now, somehow. Rex had shared his energy with him. Balance, loyalty, connection. Genesis had created more than weapons. They had created a team, Jack. Echo 7 said, if I go into the core and release the memory charge, it will wipe every trace of the Genesis project. The collectors will lose their signal, but I won't survive. Jack looked at him, then at Rex. No, he said. There has to be another way. Rex barked once, short and firm. Then he ran to the console near the core room. He looked back only once, as if saying, it's my turn now. No. Jack shouted, running forward. Echo 7 held him back. We can't stop him, he said. He was born for this. Rex stepped into the core chamber, body glowing brighter now, the doors sealed behind him. Through the window, Jack saw Rex place his paw on the console. The light grew, then pulsed. A shockwave of blue light blasted outward, flowing through every tunnel, every system, every enemy. The collectors froze, then fell. Their bodies disintegrated into dust and sparks. One by one, they disappeared. wiped clean. The Genesis core shut down. The alarms went silent. Only the quiet hum of the wind outside remained. Jack stood in the empty lab, fists clenched, heart broken. Echo 7 walked beside him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "He didn't die," he said softly. "He became the code." And then, from the console, a flicker of light, a single sound, a bark. Faint but clear, Rex had become part of the system, still guarding, still watching, still loyal. There was no music, no celebration, just wind moving gently across the hills of Terra 9. Jack stood on a ridge near the broken Genesis lab. The entrance was sealed now, buried again beneath the dirt. No one would find it. At least not for a long time. The war was over. The collectors were gone. Their signal erased. Their power broken. But Rex was gone too. Gone in body, maybe, but not in presence, not in memory, not in the system. Jack pressed a button on his wrist pad. The small screen blinked once, and a familiar sound played quietly. A bark, soft and proud, Rex's last message. Encoded into the lab's final surge, behind him, Echo 7 approached, walking slower now. He had changed. Not just in power, but in spirit. The cold soldier was gone. What remained was something more human than Jack had ever seen. "Everything is quiet," Echo 7 said. Jack nodded. For now, they stood there for a moment, just breathing. No ships. Above, no shadows in the trees. Just sky, wind, and peace. "Do you think anyone will ever believe this happened?" Echo 7 asked. Jack looked at the horizon. "Doesn't matter," he said. "We know." Echo 7 turned and walked toward the small colony that survived the attack. Families were rebuilding. Children were playing again. Life was moving forward. And no one knew how close they had come to losing it all. But Jack knew, and so did Rex. Even if his paws would never touch this ground again, his presence was still here. At night, the power grid would flicker once, a sign he was watching. The lights in the shelter would turn off exactly at the right time. Sometimes, when Jack dropped something, it wouldn't hit the ground. It would stop mid-air, float, then gently land. Like someone was still guarding him, still protecting. The Genesis cube was no longer a weapon. Now it was a beacon. Jack had reprogrammed it. With Echo 7's help. It now sent out a new signal, not one of fear or control, but a simple message. Sent every hour into deep space. "We were more than you thought. We felt more than you feared, and we remember everything." Days passed, then weeks. One morning, Jack walked outside and found a ship parked at the edge of the colony, not Earth. Military, not alien, something new, silent, elegant. From the ramp walked a girl. Young, no weapon in hand. Behind her, a creature. Part dog, part hybrid, eyes glowing blue. Jack stepped forward slowly, hand near his belt. But the girl smiled and said, "We received your signal." Echo 7 appeared beside Jack. Curious, the girl continued, "You're not alone anymore." Jack didn't respond at first. He just looked at the creature standing next to the girl. It walked forward slowly, then barked once. The bark was strange, broken, but familiar. Jack's heart skipped. He kneeled down, hand extended. The creature stepped closer and gently placed its paw in Jack's hand. A wave of warmth passed through him. Not just energy, but recognition. "Rex?" Jack whispered. The creature tilted its head, wagged its tail, and blinked slowly. Not exactly him, but part of him, a fragment of code, a piece of soul, reborn through the cube's final surge. Echo 7 stepped closer and smiled, a real smile. "This time, Genesis didn't die," he said. "It evolved, and so it did." The lab became a sanctuary. The colony became a symbol, and Jack, Echo 7, and the new Rex stood as its guardians. When other hybrids arrived, scared, lost, or hunted, they came here and they were welcomed, not as soldiers, not as threats, but as family in the end. It wasn't war that saved them. It was loyalty. It was memory. It was love, from a dog who refused to run. So when the stars shift and new ships land. And strange creatures ask, what made humanity so strong? The answer is simple. We don't abandon our own, not even when they bleed. Not even when they're different. Not even when they fall. Because when it matters most, humanity stands. And sometimes, it stands with a dog at its side. Tail wagging, eyes forward, and heart full.